Thanks so much for coming out tonight. I feel like we're saying, oh, this big snowy day, but it's really a little dusting. So thanks for coming out in the dusting, and it'll be totally worth it. I'm Eileen Newman, and I'm the managing director of the Tribeca Film Institute. And Vlad Nikolic from the New School and I have been working on putting these evenings together of Tribeca Film Institute at the New School. So tonight is, I think, a really special event. It's very special for us at Tribeca. You are going to listen to Paola Mendoza and Gloria and Morte, the filmmakers of a wonderful film called Entre Nos, which you're not going to be able to see all of tonight. But that's good because it whets your appetite, and you'll surely want to see it after tonight and have all your friends want to see it after tonight. And Ann Bennett is going to be our wonderful moderator. So we're going to do what's called a case study of the film. And so they're going to be talking about how they came to make this film, the trials and tribulations and triumphs of the whole process of getting an independent film made. You will get to listen to the process that they went through, see clips from an earlier work and Entre Nos, and then there'll be plenty of time for Q&A. Okay, enjoy. Thanks.
Good evening. We'll try this again. I'm a preacher's daughter, so you got to work with me here. Good evening.
Hey.
Very good, thank you. I want to say good evening and welcome to this program sponsored by Tribeca All Access and the New School. We're very, very excited to have these two wonderful filmmakers with us here tonight to tell us their amazing story of how they got this feature film written, produced, shot, edited, and distributed really throughout the world at this point. Yes? So tonight we're going to have what we call a case study. We're going to take their experience as filmmakers, as writers, as producers, and start to break it down to find out how did this really happen? What were the step-by-step procedures for them to get from concept to written idea to production plan to day of days shooting on the streets of New York to a finished film that's now won festival awards really throughout the world. So let's start by just getting a sense of what this really great film is. And I'll just read a brief synopsis of Entre Nous. Shortly after she totes her two children from Colombia to reunite with her husband in Queens, the central character, Mariana, played by the film's director and co-director, Paola Mendoza, has her life turned upside down when her husband abandons her and her children to fend for themselves in the mean streets of New York. Mariana desperately searches for work in the midst of a steamy, hot New York summer. But despite her creative and courageous efforts, Mariana and her children soon become homeless. But despite their dire situations, Mariana discovers a network of allies and peers like Preet, played by Sarit Chowdhury, who is also a single mom and on her own. Mariana also finds solace and support from her own two children, her 10-year-old son, Gabriel, played by Sebastian Villada Lopez, and her daughter, Andrea, played by Laura Montana Cortez. The dramatic narrative of Entre Nous is based on real-life events, and the compelling spirit of this film is inspired by the individual and collective experiences of families trying to make a better world for themselves and their communities. This is a true story of the American dream. The filmmakers are Gloria and Morte. Gloria had taken an active role in her filmmaking career as a writer, editor, and now director. Her film career began in 2000 as a writer and co-producer of the film Details. Her first narrative short film had its television debut on HBO after a notable festival run, including Best Short Film Award at the New York International Latino Film Festival. She went on to co-produce the multiple award-winning film Washington Heights, one of my favorites, in 2002. Ms. LaMorta won Best Documentary Editor for Autumn's Eyes at the 2006 Woodstock Film Festival, a credit that she shares with her husband and partner, Joseph LaMorta. She has since edited another award-winning feature documentary, Woven Ways, and later Connect USA. She is currently writing her second feature, a dark comedy entitled Fathers and Sons. Paola Mendoza, the co-director and co-writer of the film, writes, "Poverty in America is a common theme for all of Ms. Mendoza's work. From her directorial debut in Autumn Eyes to On the Outs, to the short documentary Still Standing, and to her latest film, Entre Nos. Ms. Mendoza has continually tackled the effects of poverty and family on family and children. Her films have been embraced at prestigious film festivals such as Toronto, Berlin, South by Southwest, Full Frame, Hot Docs, and now the Tribeca Film Festival. She was a nominee for the 2008 NALIP Estelle Awards, given to Latino filmmakers that show extraordinary promise in the field of directing. As a writer, she won the Grand Jury Prize for the Panasonic Digital Filmmakers Award in 2007, and from the IFP market for the script of Entre Nous. So this gives you just a sense of some of the amazing work that these two women directors have done. But let's get an idea of how you guys got started. So if you could perhaps just start by sharing with us, how did you come up with a concept, and how did you negotiate the concept around the issues of personal and universal?
Well, the idea of how the film came to be is that it's actually inspired by my mother's story. So it was a story that I had grown up hearing my entire life. And I was always very curious about the story because I always wanted to know exactly what it was that my mom had to do in order to basically get me to where I was today. And then one day I was driving in the Bronx and I saw a woman, and she had this little girl with her. She was probably like 4 or 5 years old. She had they were walking underneath the bridge, the subway, and she was pushing a cart, and the cart was overflowing with cans. And I looked at her and I thought, wow, I wonder what her story is. How did she get here? And then I had the flash of lightning in my head and realized that, her story is my mother's story. And if I'm curious about it, well, then maybe there's other people that are curious about it too. So that's when I decided that this was a story that I wanted to tell. Gloria and I had worked together on Autumn's Eyes. She was the editor and I was the director. And when you're editing a documentary, you're writing a script essentially in the edit room. And it was during that collaboration, it was 9 months that we had to make the movie in the edit room, that I realized what a phenomenal writer she was. So I sat down with her when we premiered the film at South by Southwest, and I asked her, I said, I have this idea for this film. Gloria is also Colombian, an immigrant as well, and I said, I think it would be great if we could sit down and write the movie together. I had never written a feature film in this fashion, in a traditional fashion. Gloria had never written a feature film either, so we kind of just dove in head first and trusted that we would figure it out. And the first thing that we did in order to do that was that I interviewed my mom, a very, very extensive interview, where I asked her questions that I had never asked her before, specific things about what had happened, what she felt like, things that were very difficult for her to talk about. And then I never talked to her about it again until the script was done. So that's how we came to write the script together.
When Paola approached me, I don't know, Autumn's Eyes was about 2005, 2006, to edit her feature documentary, Autumn's Eyes. I'd never edited a documentary, a feature at that point. I'd only edited shorts. Documentary. So she really gave me an opportunity and challenged me and my husband to work hard as editors. So what I want to say is that it's taking that chance. I don't know the level of how many films people here have done, or if you're just starting to write, or where you are in your careers. But one thing that really worked with Autumn's Eyes and worked beautifully with Entre Nos is collaboration. And I've really been able to experience that firsthand. First, as I said, working in Autumn's Eyes, and then in in Entre Nos. It is Paola's mother's story. However, I never felt I didn't have a voice. I never felt like my experience, which was very, very different than her immigrant experience, coming to the U.S. for my family was very different than hers. And I think that's the appeal of the story, that it touches everybody universal. And so I just really want to stress throughout our conversation today the importance of collaboration, because this film was able to get done because of what Paola was willing to do as an artist, and I was willing to do anything as well to get the story done. And I know we'll be talking about, when we're talking to we're looking for financing, just really having that confidence to take a leap of faith to do new things and taking that chance.
Now, you mentioned about collaboration. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more, since we have a lot of writers here tonight, about how long it took to actually get that script from the concept to a point where you could really show it and shop it around, and what was really the day-to-day, the weekly, the monthly, what were some of your daily practices and intermittent benchmarks that helped you get through?
Well, what Gloria and I realized, the first step for us was that we created an outline, a very detailed outline. So we sat for hours and hours and hours on end and brainstormed an outline, and just bullet pointed our outline, but it was a very specific outline. After we had our outline that we had obviously reworked a few times by the time we started physically writing the scenes, what we decided that we would take, scenes 1 through 10 and divvy it up. So I would say, you know what, I'm really feeling scene 8, 7, and 3. And she would say, okay, I'm feeling 1, 2, and 10. And that would leave 9 and 6. So I'd be like, okay, I'll take 9, she'd take 6. And we would go and we would write them separately. And then we would come back and we would share them with one another. And it was in that sharing process that, she would read her scene first all the way through, read it again, and then we would stop and go, and we would rework it together. We would debate, we would argue, we would talk. So what was specifically great about that is that Gloria would go and write something, and I would have a different idea for the script, but she would come back with these little surprises that would open up my mind to something completely different. So that was what was beautiful about it, and also sometimes difficult, because at times I had a vision for a scene and she had a vision for a scene, but I can honestly say that Gloria and I have been working together now since 2005 nonstop. So that's 5 years now. So we would have creative battles, clearly, but it was never to a point where it would ever be personal. And there would come to a point where we'd be arguing the same point, whether the shirt should be red or whether it should be purple, for 2 hours, and we would say, okay, we're going to put this to rest. Yeah, because clearly we're not getting anywhere. And we would each think about it for hours on end that night and then realize, okay, maybe it needs to be yellow. So anyways, So that was the process, and it really, really worked for us. And that's what we did from the first draft all the way to the shooting script.
That process took us, I would say, about 2 years. It took us 2 years. During that time, naturally, it's not at year 2 that we started showing it to people. When we felt like we were at a strong point, we started showing our script. There were a couple of people that we trusted, have them read it, get feedback, and that was very important in the writing and also in the editing. When we're working together, when we felt we came to where we're like, okay, let's get a fresh pair of eyes, ideas, etc., we would very selectively share it with people that we trusted and get their notes and take that. So, in the end, it took us 2 years. We started shooting the film, I guess, at the third, about two and a half years in there. And basically, that's when we stopped writing, because writing is rewriting, and I think you can go on. So it's also important to know, when your story is done.
So you've gone through the writing process. You've been, working on this for several months, almost 2 years. Can you talk about what were the moments when you realized that, okay, we need some outside help, in addition to readers, but we need to start to go to organizations or start to reach out to members of the film community? If you could talk a little bit about those experiences.
When we had our first draft, essentially, our first readable draft that we felt comfortable sharing with people, I was like, let's submit to IFP, because the deadline was next week. It was just very random. I said, let's submit to IFP and let's see if we get in. And at that time,
needed a title. We didn't have a title.
We didn't have a title. We were coming up, and we had the worst title for 2 years because we couldn't think of anything else. which is not the title that we have now. We love our title now. So we submitted the film, and for me personally, it was like, let's see if this is any good. Like, let's see if we get accepted. And to our surprise, we got accepted. And at that time, they've changed now from what I understand, but at that time it was basically, if you got accepted, they would accept basically 30 scripts, and then you would pitch to producers and financiers and lawyers and blah, 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 blah. So it was a great pat on the back. It was like, you know what? We're on the right track. Someone actually likes the script. Someone sees potential in it besides us. And then we were extraordinarily blessed at the end of that IFP market that we won an award for the script, which gave us a camera package. And it was a 3-week camera package when we were making the movie, and we had 2 years to use it.
And it had to be with that same script,
Yeah.
so I couldn't run with that.
Yeah.
I couldn't run away with it.
So we decided, we have a script,
Yep.
we have a camera, so let's make a fucking movie, excuse my French. And so literally that was in September, and by the next year in August we were shooting. We were making the movie. That really lit the fire under us and just forced us to go out and raise that money. Now we also, besides IFP, we obviously work with Tribeca All Access, and maybe you want to talk about that.
So when the opportunity came around to apply to Tribeca All Access, we felt we probably had a tighter script, and we submitted the script. And it was for the same purpose, to be able to sit down in front of potential producers and financiers and pitch the story. And we met some wonderful people there. Through Tribeca All Access, we met the people at CineReach. We applied for a grant with CineReach. We got that grant. And also Tribeca All Access, it was the first year that when they helped us in production as well. So when we were ready to start, when we went into production, they made a lot of equipment available to us that really, really was vital in us getting the film done. So it was really tapping into all the possible resources that we could.
And even post, after financing or after TAA or after IFP market, we've been very active and very clear about requesting and needing help from those organizations that have supported us in the past. Obviously, we don't take advantage of them, but when we need something, we ask and say, this is what we need. Is this possible? Can you do this? As an example, because once you go through TAA, you become an on-track member. It's an on-track alumni, right? So we needed to screen the film for potential distributors, but we didn't have the money to pay for a theater. So we called TAA and said, could you possibly lend us one of your theaters? And they very graciously did. And it was through them that we ended up getting our VOD deal, through that screening. So those are the things that, and I always say to filmmakers that as creative as we are in writing our movies and as creative as we are as directing our movies, we need to be just as creative in raising money and building network. Because obviously we all know that the film industry, independent film industry, is dead, or it's changing, or it's in this new paradigm, and we don't know what it is, and we don't know how to make money. We all know that. So all we really have, I believe, is each other as filmmakers and those organizations that support us and help us. So we really need to take advantage of them because there's not many out there.
Now, you were able to make your film with a really modest budget, but it doesn't show on the screen. It really looks, very lush and very tight and professional. Can you talk about how you went about actually getting the cash to get the film together? Mm-hmm. So who did you reach out to? Was it from some of your meetings from IFP or Tribeca? Mm-hmm. But who were the individuals or organizations that helped you actually get the cash in hand so you could start production that summer?
Well, basically, we got a post-production grant from CineReach, which was crucial. We also got a small grant from the Filmmakers Collaborative, which was a small amount of money that we needed at a very crucial point. And then IndiePix Studios was our financier, and IndiePix had distributed Autumn's Eyes on DVD. And we just came in the right time at the right place. We presented the script to Bob Alexander, the CEO. And he loved it, and he said, I'm going to give you a certain amount of money, I'm going to help you raise the rest of the money, and we were talking about a small amount of money. Because the film is sold and everything now, we can actually say, we made the movie for $340,000, which nowadays people might think that that's actually a little bit too much, but still, for what we got and for what we have, is very, very little amount of money, and that allowed our investor to basically put down all of the money because he felt and feels that he can get that money back. So that's where we are.
I also want to add, in the process of making this film, we didn't set out to do everything that we ended up doing in the film. You know, Paola is the lead actress in the film. She plays her mother. We co-wrote, we co-directed. I'm the editor in the film. Basically, when we sat down with Bob Alexander, the person who eventually financed our film, we were able to let him know, if we can shoot this movie, we can get it, we can have it ready for festivals. You know, I'm an editor, and so we knew, and that was the importance of also the collaboration. So if there's a film that you have, or there's someone that you know that you trust their work, they're talented people, they're hungry, they love your story, you know, talk to them. And because I think this was a great situation to let the investor know, have confidence, like we can really take this film all the way. Because, you know, money is hard to come by, so if it can be done in the editing room or anywhere else, that's very important as well.
So at this point, I know you brought a couple of clips with
Yeah.
you, so it'll be great maybe if we could take a quick look at some of the key scenes within the film.
We'll do that. We put together first a short clip of Autumn's Eyes, which is the film that Paola and I worked on many years ago. It's really the film that put us together creatively. So just, we can go to the videotape.
Watch them all, or?
No, we're gonna stop. We'll stop, it's about 2+ minutes, and then we'll. Is the gentleman gonna?
You came down first, right? Nobody else didn't come down, right?
Guess what?
And you gonna give mommy a nasty ass cold.
You got a cold?
Yes, she got a cold. Then mommy get sick. Can't get mommy in the
You
job.
trying to give me a cold?
No.
So you can stay with me?
Yes.
Well, don't put that through her head, because this she'll go home. Mommy said if I give her my cold, I could go with her.
All day you been in jail.
No, I didn't.
All day she been in jail, right?
Or that. She been in jail for a long time.
I've been in jail almost a
Like
year.
forever.
Forever you been in jail.
You miss me? What you doing, Scott?
Guess what we do?
What
You write your name.
Pledge allegiance.
Oh, you do Pledge of Allegiance? How we go?
Get that one.
Show me
Come
the
here, come here.
first one.
Put your hand on your left chest.
Your heart on.
I pledge allegiance. Say it.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the flag
of the United States
of the United States
of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty, justice for all.
You know the Pledge of Allegiance, I ain't learned that till I was in the 3rd grade.
If I still can't snap the whole thing.
Say it again, say it again.
Again.
One more time.
Internet, it's time to go.
You write me a letter?
Love you.
I love you too.
pareció?
So that was the visitation scene from Autumn's Eyes. Autumn's Eyes is a beautiful story. It follows Autumn. She's 3 years old, and her mother was incarcerated for a year. So Paola Mendoza and Gabriel Noble were the directors, and they were a part of Autumn's life and family for about a year. And this is a beautiful film. It's available through IndiePix. That's how the relationship started with who became our financier for our feature film, Bob Alexander. They're the ones who distribute Autumn's Eyes.
And just to talk really quickly about Autumn's Eyes, because that was really the first film that got me involved in the film industry on my own dime, essentially. That film, it was a feature documentary that we made basically for $4,000. We begged, borrowed, and pleaded for people to lend us their camera, their cards, their easy passes, their tape stock, their time. We had friends. That was the only time that we had a 2-camera shoot, so we had someone come in and work with us for free. And it was really, basically, for both Gabe and I, it was an investment in ourselves. You know, we didn't make a penny. We spent the $4,000. We didn't get an advance on a DVD. So, you know, in a certain sense, we lost $4,000, but really it was an investment in ourselves to show to the world, look, this is what we can do. And more importantly, it was a story that we believed really needed to be told. And the style of Autumn's Eyes influenced actually a lot in Entre Nos, because one of the characters in Entre Nos, she's 6 years old in the film, and there's a variety of different scenes that actually we pulled directly from Autumn's Eyes and placed into Entre Nos. Because they just related so perfectly, and you know, we're not that great of writers in the sense that Autumn was the brilliant one. Yeah, exactly. So we wanted to show that, because there is a relation between the beginning and where we go to Entre Nos. And I think the first scene of Entre Nos that we're gonna family visits Alejo. So the family, basically the mom and the 2 kids, the dad's been gone for a few days, and the mom hasn't heard from him, and she's very worried about what's going on with the dad. He moved to Miami, or went to Miami for work, and he was supposed to be back or send for them within the few days, and he hasn't. So the mom is trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
Yo, hola. Pásale. ¿Cómo estás? Hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué más pelado?
¿Tú sabes, pues, has hablado con Antonio?
Sí.
Sí.
Niños, ¿por qué no van al cuarto de televisión?
No quiero.
No, Andrea, vaya al cuarto. Gaby, lleva a Andrea al cuarto.
Que
vaya.
Ahí puedes ver muñequitos. Canal 11. Ven, pásale.
Alejo. ¿Alejo qué? ¿Qué?
Mari, él dijo que no va a volver.
Este hombre. ¿Dónde nos vamos a Miami? No joda.
No, tampoco.
¿Cómo así?
Mira, él me llamó ayer y yo le dije que te llamara a ti, pero obviamente me dijo que él no quiere volver y que no quiere que ustedes vayan para allá tampoco.
No.
Cálmate.
No, esto no. Por favor, no. ¿Dónde está tu teléfono?
Ahí, el teléfono está ahí. Pero, ven. No, flaca, si yo le he estado marcando todo el día y él no contesta.
Mira, mi amor, yo estoy acá con Alejo y necesito que me llames apenas recibas este mensaje. Llámame. ¿Él está en Miami?
Yo creo que sí.
Ok. Pues vamos a Miami entonces.
Esa ciudad es muy grande y no va a ser fácil encontrarlo.
¿Y yo qué voy a hacer acá? ¿Ah? ¿Yo qué voy a hacer acá sin él, con esos niños?
Yo te entiendo, pero dale tiempo.
No entiendo nada.
Cálmate, pero...
No.
Cálmate, ven, te doy plata, ¿va? ¿Cómo vas a llegar allá? Van a necesitar dinero. Mira, mira, es todo lo que tengo. Pero eso no va a ser suficiente, flaca.
Gracias. Niños, niños. Vamos. Vamos, vamos.
Madre, yo lo siento.
So that's how she finds out that her husband is not planning on coming back.
I think something that's really important to say about the success of Entre Nos as well, just in general, is that the film was shot in Jackson Heights. And it was because of the community of Jackson Heights that we were able to make the movie. They really came around and supported the film. That house is someone's house that they let us in, and we redecorated and went and used their house for the day to shoot. And it was things of that nature. We shot the film in 18 days, which is really hard, especially when you have two kids as leads that are in 95% of every scene, and they can only be on set for 8 and 9 hours respectively. But it was the people of Jackson Heights that really opened up their houses, their restaurants, their community centers, their churches, their hospitals to us. And that's one of the ways in which, if you're working in this style of filmmaking and ultra-low budget filmmaking, that's what you have to do. Our locations were basically $100 a day. And obviously, their house for a day, for 12 hours, is worth much more. But we didn't have it, and it was this idea of a community effort. So we would come in, we would use their house, we would give them the food, they would eat with us, we would make an experience for them. And whatever location that we worked in, we tried to do that consistently. And we also hired a lot of people within the community to work as the crew or as PAs or as interns for young people. So that's the way in which we tried to give back to the community that gave so much back to us in order to make the film.
And I just wanted to add, a lot of people have asked, your casting directors, they have such a great resume, so many professional people, everybody, on our set, they were professionals. And how did you guys get them to work on your movie? I mean, negotiating, how did it work? And basically, it was the script. I think they really fell in love with the story. Everybody got paid on set, but these are people that work for a lot more money than what we were able to pay them. So when you have a piece of work that people really respond to on a creative level and they want to be part of your project, your dollar really, really goes a long way in terms of talent. So, our cinematographer, Bradford Young, I mean, just absolute professionals that really believed in the story. And that's really what it took to get this story done, was people that really believed in it, because that's really the only way that people are going to go that extra mile to make the film happen.
I was wondering, you mentioned a little bit about casting. If you could talk about your choice to cast Mariana, and then also how you were able to find the children, who they're just on point. And you said they're in almost every scene, and it's almost like a documentary. They just seem so natural and so comfortable. So if you could talk a little bit about finding them and also directing yourself.
Well, I am an actress. That's how I started off, as an actress, and then I got to directing documentaries and then writing and then directing narratives. So when as Gloria mentioned earlier, when we first started off, we didn't really have the plan to do everything. That wasn't when we went into our meetings for IFP, everyone was asking us, "Oh, do you guys want to direct this?" And we were like, "We don't know. I don't know." We hadn't had the conversation. They asked us about actors. We mentioned other actresses that could play the role of Mariana. So we were very open until I had a conversation with my mom. And basically my mom, because I was telling her about the progress of the film, and she was like, "Oh, great." And I mentioned her, about possibly another actress that was going to play Mariana. And she was like, wait, you never told me this. And I was like, "No, well, blah, blah, blah." I tried to explain to her money, financing, and she was like, "No, you can make this movie, but you can only make it if you play Mariana. That's the only way it can happen." And I was like, okay. So I went back and I told Gloria, and Gloria was like, "Yeah, of course, let's do it." As I said, I had made many films before that, but it was a big responsibility to go and basically play my mother with a story that is so intense, and had to relive a lot of those things that I remember as a child, but from a different perspective. It was very emotional.
her work in playing Mariana naturally came when, you know, we knew that she was going to play the role. Another difficult thing, I don't know if it was difficult, I never felt it being difficult in the writing room, but also was, you know, the story basically, it revolves around, and basically the story takes off when the father abandons the family. So that was also something that Paola needed to be in touch with, or just as writers, we needed to be very real about a father that leaves a family and how to handle this situation. So in the writing room, I think that what worked was, it was a very personal story, but when we started writing, it took a life of its own immediately. I never felt like I was like, oh, should I ask Paola this? How does she feel about her father? You know, it was always about the characters, Mariana. And so, because I've been in love with stories that come from reality, because I just think that really it's just all the best stories are in front of you. But the important thing was to write this very personal story in a way that everybody could understand it and feel for the characters. So that was a very intense process, but you know, it was something that we learned along the way of how to handle that. Because we didn't know how to handle it, but it's just organic that happened.
As for the casting of the kids, it's actually a really fantastic story, because we needed kids that needed to be fluent in Spanish, and not only fluent in Spanish, but they needed to speak Spanish in a way in which they would be believable that they just arrived to this country. So they
From Colombia.
Yeah, they couldn't have any American accent. They needed to speak Spanish with a Colombian accent. They needed to be able to pass off that they were my kids, as well as brother and sister. On top of it, they needed to both be extraordinary actors, because the film is really, there's some really intense scenes for these little kids. We had a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. That's the age that we had. And we knew that we weren't going to use professional kids, because kid actors tend to be just too polished, and we needed something that was raw, real, very documentary feeling. So we went into the community and we worked with Maria Nelson and Ellen Marshall Long, the cast, Maria Full Grace and El Cantante and Real Women Have Curves, and they knew basically their specialty is to go in and do cattle call auditions. So we went into Jackson Heights, we announced in the community centers and churches, we posted up on the corner, we handed out flyers, we talked to every little kids on the street, we'd be like, oh, hey, we're making a movie, blah, 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 would you want your kids to audition, da, 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 da. We ended up seeing 500 kids. Out of those 500 kids, we cast the little girl, Laura, who came in and blew us away. And we were very lucky that she was 8 at the time, but she looks like she's 6 because she's tiny. So but she has the personality of really like a 9-year-old, very responsible, very smart, very loving, very giving. So we cast her. But we still hadn't had our boy. We didn't have our boy, and part of what we knew that was crucial for the film was the performances of the kids. So we had built in a 3-week rehearsal process prior to shooting the movie to rehearse with the kids. And our rehearsals were supposed to start in 2 days, and we had no boy. But we got very lucky because there was a Colombian Day Parade, which is basically the Colombian Independence Day, July 20th, which means 30,000 Colombians from the tri-state area all converge in this one park. And we said, you know what, we will find our boy at this park. We will find our star. We have to. So Gloria and I, on the hottest day of the summer, it was so crazy, got to Flushing Park at 9 in the morning, didn't leave until 6 at night, and went up to every kid, every boy that was around 10 years old, and asked them, do you speak Spanish? Talked to them a little bit, got their personality, then was like, oh, hey, do you think you might want to be in a movie? Their parents were like, who the hell are you? Thank God we were women, because if we were men, they would have been like taking the kids away, you know, so it was, but we talked to so many kids, and Sebastian, the boy, was actually the second kid that we talked to, and based off of all the kids that we talked to, then we went in and had an audition. We auditioned about 10 boys, and Sebastian blew us away. He's a phenomenal actor. Neither one of them has ever acted before in their lives. But it was that 3-week rehearsal process that really got them to understand the characters and really breathe and live and ask questions, and we did a lot of theater exercises with them, and we basically did a 3-week intensive acting course with them.
Yeah, I mean, even just to the point of rehearsing with them, with having a camera in front of them, you know, not to look at the camera, what to do. So creatively, you know, in terms of character, but also the, you know, the physicalities of what it is to be on set, and getting them to, and they really established a beautiful relationship, because eventually, I mean, you know, they were playing her children, so that's where all that happened.
AKA, I was yelling at them as if they were my own on set.
Yes.
So I was wondering, do you have any more clips that we can get a sense of the kids?
Yes.
At the family in the park.
After she finds out that the husband's not coming back and he doesn't come back, she starts trying to sell her empanadas. She starts trying to figure out how she can make a living, and she starts selling.
She gets homeless.
She becomes homeless. She gets home and they kick her out because no one's paying the rent. So the next clip is basically just a few hours after they were kicked out of their apartment.
And just because right before we go in, one of the luxuries that we splurged on was a dolly, which we had for 2 days. So we were very, very specific as to when we used the dolly. And it was one of the things that the DP really, really demanded. And we didn't have a lot of lights, so all of the lighting obviously is natural when we're outside, but even inside the apartment, it was very, very minimal light because we didn't have the time or the money to set up extensive lighting cues. So the DP got very creative in that area as well. So you'll see our one of 3 dolly shots right here.
Esa es la única estrella.
La única que se ve.
Mami, ¿será la que vimos allá en Colombia?
Pues sí, todas las estrellas son iguales.
Mami, ¿cuántas lunas hay?
Solo hay una.
¿La misma para todo el mundo?
Sí, la misma para todo el mundo.
Entonces la misma luna para la abuelita.
No, para ella es un poquito diferente porque, pues, ella está en el cielo.
La misma de Miami.
Sí, mi amor, es la misma luna en Miami.
Mami, nosotros todavía vamos a Miami, ¿cierto?
Sí, mi amor. Pero nos vamos a demorar un ratico en llegar a Miami, ¿ok?
Bueno. Mamá. Tengo miedo.
No tienes que tener miedo de nada. Todo va a estar bien, ¿ok?
Sí, porque tú eres la super mamá.
Sí, yo soy la super mamá. Gaby es el super hombre y tú eres la super niña. ¿Cierto?
Sí.
It's actually all 3 dolly shots.
That's
Saw them all.
great. Yeah.
Well, there's only one at the other. Yeah.
So this might be a good point to open up for questions for the audience. So if there are questions, are folks to come up to the mic, or can they just stand? Yeah, so there's a microphone right down front here. If you could come forward and ask your questions or make comments.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Appreciate it. I just want to comment, actually comment on that last shot we just saw. I don't know whether you noticed, but it looked like a crucifix with the zoom with the park and everything like that with the girls. That was a beautiful shot. And personal question, how did your mom find the picture, since it's about her? That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Well, as I said, that after I interviewed her, I basically didn't talk to her about the film again, and she never asked, so I think she thought I kind of gave up on it. And then about a year and a half later, we were in Colombia for Christmas, actually, and I gave her her present, and she opened it up, and she was very confused because it was a script. And she was like, what is this? What is this? And she was totally confused by it, and then I told her, I said it was the script of the movie. And she totally freaked out because she was like, I can't believe, I thought you gave up, you never said anything, blah, 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 blah. And she started reading it, and she was very pleased. I was very nervous about her reading the story, and she was very pleased with it. And I also gave the script to my brother for Christmas as well. And he told me that he read it, and my brother had no clue. I just sent him the script and told him basically how to read a script. And he said that he read the script and then curled up in bed and cried all night. Because my brother, as you can see, is much older than, was older than me when it happened, so he has a lot more vivid memories, and he had a lot more responsibility during that time than I did. So then from there, we invited my mom out for the first week of shooting of the movie. My mom called the first action, and my mom and my brother and his whole family was there. He has 3 kids now, and it was really beautiful, really special, and they didn't really understand, like, they're not movie people, they're not artists, so and you know, movie set's crazy, so they didn't understand, and they were like, why do you gotta do it 5 times, and why are you so angry, why are you running around stressed out, like, blah, 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 blah. And then we never mentioned it to them again, and I asked my mom, once we got accepted into Tribeca, if she wanted to see the movie alone, and she said no, that she wanted to see it at its world premiere on the big screen. So we flew my mom out and my brother out to Tribeca, and when we were driving into the city, because I live in Brooklyn, I asked her, I said, you know, how do you feel? What are you thinking? She's like, you know, I'm a little nervous because I'm scared I'm going to be embarrassed because my dirty laundry is going to be out for the world to see. I was like, okay. My heart's like pounding. I was like, fuck. So we get there, and, you know, it's crazy. It's a packed house, and we did the red carpet. My mom did the red carpet. My brother, it was all great. And then we sit down, and the lights go down, and after like 3 minutes, my brother, my mom, and my aunt are sitting behind me, and I start hearing sniffles. And I was like, oh my God, we haven't even gotten to the hard stuff and somebody's already crying. And it was sniffles and sniffles throughout the whole movie. I was like, shit. So when the movie is done, I turn around and it was my brother who was bawling. And so what was really beautiful about that night is we came up to do the Q&A, and we asked my mom and my brother to come down. And they got a standing ovation, a very long standing ovation. It was a very beautiful moment, very special for me, my mom, my brother. In particular because one of the reasons that I made this movie was because I wanted to thank my mom, and I wanted to shine a light on her and all of her sacrifices, because she's, I believe, an amazing woman, and she has not had the joy and luxury of basking in her own light for various reasons. So that was my way of showing gratitude to her. And at the end of the movie, she said to me, I said, Mom, how do you feel? She was like, well, you know what? I don't feel that my dirty laundry is out there. I'm very proud of the movie. So it was a very special moment. And she's been able to travel with us to various festivals, and so is my brother. So it's been very special. A long answer to your question.
Worth it.
Other questions?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there we go.
You said that you did some work with preparing the actors, mainly the kids, And I wanted to know if you could mention some kind of exercises that you use to work with it. If you could give some examples of exercises that you used with the kids.
The main thing was for the kids or any actor to trust. So one game would basically be a trusting game. It could be as simple as, I don't know if everyone's played the trusting game when trust falls. So it could be as basic as that game. You can actually find out what, but trust is a big issue to deal with when you're dealing with actors and you're trying to develop that. Also very important is, especially for the kids, we needed them to open up. We needed them to know that they were in a safe place. There's a wonderful game that's called Across the Room. So Paola would lead the classes. I would, play along with them. And we get equal amounts of people on either side of the room. And Paola would say, whoever has black hair, walk across the room. Whoever had black hair walked across the room. If you like liver, walk across the room. I was the only one walking across the room. Then, are your parents divorced? Walk across the room. And you start interjecting questions that, and then you'll see the kids saw a couple of people walking across the room. Okay, I'm not alone in that. If you like the color purple, walk across the room. So very strategically, Paola would ask questions that seem harmless. Some would be questions that, oh my God, I would never want somebody to know that, but oh wow, there's other people walking. Let me walk across too. My mother also passed away last year. So this was an example of another exercise, especially with the kids, to let them know that you're in a safe place, you're not alone. And it was a really, really great introduction into the themes that we were going to be dealing with in the story, because they dealt with poverty, they dealt with abandonment, a lot of things. So that's just an example of some of the exercises and the purpose behind them.
I think also, just to add to that, the way we broke it down when we had the actual script, so we basically rehearsed every scene that we had with the kids. And the kids and I would read the scene together, sitting down, out loud. We would read it one time, and then we would put the scene outside, put it away, no script, and then we would just get up on our feet and we would just do it. And there was a rule on set, which was you can't stop no matter what. That was the #1 rule. So if you messed up, you still couldn't stop, and that was ingrained in them from the very, very beginning. As well as the other thing that we said to them all the time was the most important moments in your acting is when you're not talking, because they really wanted to talk all the time, because that's when they felt that that's when they were acting. So we drilled in them the most important times are when you're not acting, and both of their performances are very quiet, very intense, very internal, and I think it's because of that idea. So anyway, so we would get up on our feet, and not having the script in hand would allow them to, quote unquote, fail. Like there was no right in there was no wrong, so they would just do the scene. And then from there, we would kind of massage the scene into what it was closer to the script. But they were always allowed to improv on set from the very beginning. And a perfect example of that is the scene that you just saw when Laura talks, when the little girl says, and because you're super mom. That whole sequence was improv on set by her that first night. We had never heard her say that before, and we all just ran with it. And there's various moments throughout the movie that did that because we had that ability with them, and they knew that they could, and that we encouraged that improving.
Thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to ask whether or not you are now making a living as filmmakers, and if not, what's your day job? Just sort of that's, I think the biggest thing that I personally, I'm sure many of us look at as well is, what is this, how is this working day to day with paying bills in our lives, especially those of us with a lot of student debt.
That's a great question.
Yeah. When Paola first hired me to do, to direct, to edit Autumn's Eyes, I was making money elsewhere, you know, whether it was babysitting, doing all kinds of other things. But that started a career for me. So today, I'm a paid editor, and I love what I do. I tell my husband every morning, like, I just can't wait to get up to go to work, you know. When we were writing the story, we weren't getting paid for writing the story, and I had just had a baby, and basically most of the times I had to start writing at midnight. That was kind of when everybody was asleep. I knew I could get my second wind, and that's when I started writing my story. So whether you're making money or not, you really have to, you know, if you really want to do something, you kind of have to find a way to do it. But to answer your question, yes, and Paola and I are working on something right now also to keep us fresh. Show me the money. Keep us fresh in our acting, in our editing, in our directing, but, you know, also trying to make money at it.
I think that that's a really important question, and I have been very lucky that since 2006, and I say 2006 because it's a huge marker for me, that I've been able to survive as an artist, solely as an artist. Previous to that, I was teaching, arts educating, and waiting tables for a long time, which I hated, waiting tables. But it's still an everyday constant hustle, and look, I don't make a lot of money. Like, I live in Brooklyn, I live in a lovely house, lovely apartment, but I'm not rolling in any money. Gloria and I got paid, I'm just gonna be blunt and honest, $10,000 each for 3 years of work. So way below minimum wage to make this movie, you know what I'm saying? And because that was the sacrifices that we made. So it's a constant hustle, like, I enjoy the hustle in the sense that it allows me to, I have an office in Brooklyn, I go to work every day in my office to do my work. And in that, like, Gloria and I are starting a new acting, directing, editing class that she and I are hustling to bring in cash in. So for me, until you get to a certain point, and I'm not at that point, it's, you just work, you work, you work, you work. And luckily, since 2006, it's been in the arts. So it's, whether it's producing, whether it's writing, whether it's directing, whether it's acting, I just grab whatever jobs come my way. But it can be done. You just have to be patient with yourself, and you really have to believe and invest in yourself. Work for free. Like, even now, sometimes I still work for free, just to work, you know?
Mm-hmm. We have a question.
He's got it right there.
I just wanted to ask a follow-up question to her question. I was wondering what you both were working on now. You mentioned that you had a new project, and I was just wondering what that was. And then the other question I had was about how you met the DP and met the different crew that I actually worked on Bradford Young's Howard grad thesis film in DC. Wow, so when I was surprised to hear his name. I didn't realize that.
Are you a DP as well?
Sort of.
Yes, you
Trying
are.
to get there.
Yes, that's great. Well, also to answer your question about making money is now I've also started applying to a lot of grants. So I just recently was given a grant actually by TAA from the, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that yet. But anyways, I have a grant for a short documentary that will be, I'm going down to Colombia to shoot. And I'm also writing a script right now.
I just started editing a documentary, a feature documentary about a very, very talented young Puerto Rican jazz musician, Miguel Zenon, who was just nominated for a Grammy. So I'm just having a ball looking at the footage, and I'm just very excited. And then I'm also working on a feature script.
As for Brad, you know, the film world, in particular in New York, is so small. So Brad shot my title sequence for Autumn's Eyes on the Love for free. We needed someone to come out and shoot, and he came down to Jersey City with us for like 3 hours, and he shot the title sequence, which is my favorite part of the whole movie. I think it's beautiful. And then when we were looking for DPs, I had stayed in contact with Brad, but I didn't really know Brad so much. We sat down with him, and he's extraordinarily talented, but even more so than his talent, he's just a good person. And we knew that we were going to be working with kids that had never acted before, so we needed a DP that wasn't a diva. We needed a DP that was Like, I love DPs, but they tend to be divas, no offense. And as they should, like, their work is very important, but, like, we couldn't have those battles on set that I've had with other DPs. It needed to be quiet and reserved and understanding with the energy of who we were working with, these kids. And Brad was that guy, and he's amazing, and, like, he's my road dog. Like, whenever I have a job, I call Brad. Brad's coming down with me to Colombia for the documentary. Like, that's my go-to guy now. And Brad, we were so lucky to get him because now he's interviewing for huge DP jobs. Like, he's blown up, so it's great.
And that was another instance in terms of story. When we interviewed, a few DPs, but in talking to him, there was something that Paola and I always kept, present in writing the story, which was the dignity of this woman's struggle. And in interviewing and just having a conversation with Brad, he understood that really, really well. So outside of just the visual element, he knew that the importance of dignity to us, and he really was able to bring it to the screen.
I think we have a couple more questions.
Hi.
We'll work it out down this way.
Okay. Hi. A question about the script. You said that what I got from it is that neither of you had written a script before.
A feature. Mm-hmm.
A feature. Okay. So you had written before. And what did you find helped you with writing a feature as opposed to writing a short? And any other just tips for writing a script?
I guess it would be individual, but I'll take a stab at it. I've written quite a few shorts. I'd never written a feature. What really helped me was having this partnership. Paola was very clear on deadlines. There was a definite structure in terms of time. We all have to know our strengths. We all have to know our weaknesses. So I kind of saw it as, okay, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Okay, that's 3 short films. The second one is kind of a little longer. But I thought that having very definite goals and very definite deadlines really, really helped. The material, I was inspired every day to write it, but I needed to know that by Wednesday, there were 3 scenes I had to write. No matter what I was doing, come Wednesday, 6 o'clock, my partner was going to be there. So I needed to do whatever I had to do to be there present with the work. So just even the physicalness of structure and organization was really, really, really important. So for me, that made the world of difference.
That's a really good question. And I had, before working with Gloria, I had collaborated in a very non-traditional way of writing a script with 2 other people, so there was 3 of us. And now I'm, for the first time, venturing off and writing a script by myself, which is a whole different process, because I like to talk a lot, clearly, so I'm used to like battling it out with somebody about the smallest idea and getting very passionate, and now that leads me to other thoughts and other ideas, so all I have now is myself, which is interesting and quite lonely. But I think what I've learned in this stage of writing by myself is to understand that it's okay to write something poorly. Like, just get it in the sense of just get it out on the page, and if it's bad, it's okay, because you're going to go back and you're going to fix it. And what was great about Entre Nos is understanding rewriting. Like, if you were to see the first draft of our script versus where we ended up, it's a completely different script.
We would deny it.
Yeah, in story, in character, it's just a very, very different script. So when I get my first draft of my script, it's like, okay, it's not good, but it's not meant to be good. Like, a first draft, really, very rarely, I'm not a genius, so I know my first draft is going to suck. And I have to be okay with that, but understand, like, the vision of what my vision is for the long term, what my 3rd and 4th draft will be like. That's what has been very crucial for me, and it takes a lot of pressure off of you as a writer as well, to know that it doesn't have to be perfect or good the first time. You just have to know what the vision is, what the outcome will be. Right there.
Oh, we gotta go.
Does it work? Okay. First of all, I haven't seen the film yet, but it seems like a really beautiful film, a beautiful story, beautiful cinematography. I wanted to ask about the experience of co-directing on set, because I mean, you're the main actress in the film, and you also wrote it, and you're directing it as well. So I wanted to just hear a little bit about that experience of co-directing on set.
I'll let Gloria answer that question, but before I do, I just want to let you guys know that if you want to see the film, you can see the film. It's going to be coming out in May in theaters. It'll be VOD as well as theaters in Jackson Heights and possibly Manhattan. But if you've never been to Jackson Heights, it's a fabulous community. You'll go, you'll have a Colombian experience, Colombian food, Colombian club, Colombian movie. It'll be wonderful. And you can check out our website for more information on that. That was my little pitch now.
entrenosfilm.com. Yes. Like we were writing, and then we realized, oh my God, we're making a movie and we're co-directing the movie. Just to be very honest, we didn't have time to plan on our directing. Okay, you do this or I do that. We really needed to handle it how we've handled everything from the beginning. Was kind of, we have to do what we have to do. However, having written the story together, we knew what we both needed out of every scene, what we were looking for in terms of performance. So we were very, very clear for the objective of that shot, for the objective of that scene. So when we got on set, we were very prepared in terms of material. The logistics of it was basically that, Paola was on camera. I mean, 99. I mean, yeah, she's always 100% of the time. So it just organically, she ended up working a lot with the children, basically giving them notes and just talking to them, in between takes, etc. She ended up doing that part. What ended up happening, there were other actors. Then if Paola needed that I would communicate with, but Paola would say, talk to Sarita, maybe we can try this way. So I would communicate with the other actors. And it just happened that way. I've never been on a set with two directors. People were kind of frightened in the beginning. And we were first-time feature film directors. So just, I think what helped was knowing the material and really having the same work ethic that we had when we started writing, which is really what was important, was the material and getting the work done. Personalities, all that, had to be completely checked at the door, or else it wouldn't have been done.
And did you both take a look at the shot before rolling, or how did that work?
Yeah, when we had the time to.
We didn't always have the time, but whenever we could.
I mean, the reality is we were shooting 6 pages a day, 6 to 7 pages a day with 2 kids, so it's a lot. So it was a lot of run and gun, and it was a lot of just trusting. So if there was an opportunity for me to check the shot, I would check it. But Brad, Gloria, and I had talked extensively beforehand. I trusted Brad, I trusted Gloria, and we just had to run with it and roll with it. And so that was part of the sacrifice that needed to get done. And we had amazing producers as well. Joseph Lamore and Michael Skolnick were incredible and instrumental in making the movie a success. So they were our other 4 pair of eyes. If I couldn't see or whatever the reason was, so they were there. And that was, the 5 of us, Gloria, Michael, myself, and Brad, and Joe were just like the core of the heart of the film.
And it worked.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but it really did work.
It's weird.
Hi, I was just wondering, in terms of both of you, what was your educational background, and how did you hone your craft in terms of filmmaking, editing, and acting after school?
Well, I studied theater. I've never taken a film class before in my life, actually. My background is in the theater. I studied acting in the theater and then directing in the theater as well, and that, I believe, is a strength in the sense that I don't get caught up in a lot of the things that I think filmmakers sometimes get caught up in. I'm all about making a movie, getting it done. And maybe it's not the right way, or maybe it's not the way that a film school teaches to make a movie, but thus far I've made 5, and so I'm happy with what I'm doing. And for me personally, what's more important than anything is the story. And that comes from the theater. The script, the playwright, and the theater is God. And I really believe that the story is the most important thing. So my focus is on the story and the actors. And I understand it's a visual medium, but really that's not my personal focus. And nor is that my strength. So I've been blessed that I work with an amazing DP. He knows that I don't necessarily know film in the sense that I know basically from working, but so we talk, we figure it out, and I don't have a problem being like, Brad, what if we do this? Oh, you can't do this because of that. Oh, okay, or how about this? So it just allows me to think out of the box, which I really appreciate.
Very similar, non-traditional. I started out acting in New York City. I did a lot of work with Latino theater, Puerto Rican Traveling Theater, New York Rican Poets Cafe, a lot of really small theater companies. And then I went to Los Angeles to kind of pursue that acting career a little bit further. And I really found myself in more meetings, trying to find the right agent, the right manager, and really rarely saw the stage. And I realized, wow, I haven't, I've been here for X amount of time, and I'm not really doing this. I said, in the meantime, I'm going to start writing. I think that the most valuable thing that I left New York when I went to LA was with an idea for a film, for a story. And I started writing that story. And my best friend at the time, who is now my husband, who was one of the producers on the film, said, you know what, this is a good script, let's get it done. And that was my first experience with filmmaking. It was a 30-minute short that I acted in it because I thought I was going to use it as a tool to pursue my acting career. But it really became a tool for my filmmaking career. Because after that experience, Joe said, wow, this is fun, I could really do this. And then we went on to produce other films. So I've been an actress, and I produced a film, which you also have to identify what you're not the best at. Producing has been very hard for me. It's really very difficult for me. I respond a lot better to writing, editing, directing was an amazing experience. So it came through trial and error, and really step by step, without really thinking that's where I would end up. But I know that this is exactly where I want to be.
And I would say that for both of us, it's just about how we've honed our craft is simply by doing. And nowadays, it's so much more easier with the technology that's available. So many people have access to cameras that you can just do. You can just pick up a camera, and you can do if you kind of lower your expectations of what you need to make a film. You don't really need anything but a camera, some actors, and available light, and a microphone, good sound. And you can do what you can do. You can make a good movie with that. Look at Medicine for Melancholy. He made it for $18,000. He got it in the can. So it's just like there's all of these examples. So we just, as filmmakers, we have to just go out and do. The urgency of now, that is my mantra. The urgency of now. I have to do it now, because I don't know where I'll be tomorrow.
And it's something that independent filmmakers have to do. I don't think I set out to be an editor. It's just that my husband and I shot something, and I'm like, I want to see it. I want to look at it. It was a 5-minute short, but we couldn't afford an editor. So he's like, well, I think Apple has this thing called Final Cut Express, and that's how it started. And midnight we'd start flipping the book, and that's how we learned. So you basically just, like Paula said, it's so available today that there's like no excuse.
So I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions, and then do you have another clip?
Oh, yeah. We can ask questions if people want questions. That's fine.
And then I think there's one other person.
Congratulations first. Everybody can hear me without this, by the way. Okay. Sure, but anyway. 3 quick ones: a technical, a business, and a psycho-emotional. What was the format that you shot it on? Did you retain any rights when you made your deal? Because I think I heard you mention VOD specifically. And then the last one is, as new feature directors, is it fair to ask you to just take us, briefly through the process of how did you get to feel comfortable with your ability to do it? Did you have to overcome, either internal insecurity or external skepticism, and how did you arrive at the place where you both felt reasonably comfortable that you could direct a film?
That's a great question. We'll start with the easy stuff first. We shot on the Panasonic HVX 500 because that was the camera that was given to us for free, and we were very, very happy with it. It was a beautiful camera. It dealt with light and low light areas, or low light situations very, very well, and it was light enough. 90% of the film is shot handheld, so Brad needed something that was not going to kill his back, because he's not the biggest of guys. He's kind of small, 5'8", I think. With regards to retaining our rights, we have VOD through through Film Movement. We are HBO Latino in fall 2011, and then we are 2010. I'm sorry, fall 2010, and then our DVD and our theatrical distribution is through IndiePix Studios. And our theatrical distribution is very non-traditional in the way that we're doing it. So we split up the rights and tried to get the most bang for our buck. And part of our idea for the theatrical in New York and Miami and LA is to make it this Colombian experience, and really going to the core audience, which is the Colombian community, which you go to Jackson Heights and everyone knows about the film because they were there when we were shooting it, because they were involved, because they're in it. So there's a huge support network there. And the idea is for Manhattanites, because our belief is that we have to make independent film now an event. So for Manhattanites, it's kind of a cool experience to go out to Jackson Heights if you've never been, because it's like a whole nother world. You walk in and no one speaks English, and you have amazing Colombian food, and so you'll venture out to Jackson Heights on a beautiful May sunny day and see a movie. So that's the easy part. And we'll answer this individually. Yes, of course, there was a lot of personal things that one has to overcome. And believing in oneself is something that I think it takes a lifetime, that you constantly falter on. You believe and then you don't believe. You have an amazing screening and then someone tells you your movie sucks, or so that fluctuates. But for me, it's really a matter of, this is when I'm happiest, when I'm working. So what is the other option? I wake up every morning and I go to my office and I work on my own work because this is what I want to do. Because if I wasn't doing this, I don't know what else there would be. So I just have to get over that doubt and sometimes look at myself and say, shit, I'm 30 years old and I've made 5 movies. That's not bad. Whether you like them or you don't like them, I really don't care. I'm happy with my work, and my work means something to me personally, and I think to the world, and that's kind of what drives me as well, is the work that I choose to make is not work that's necessarily just for entertainment purposes. It has social message, and that makes me believe that I won't get paid for 3 years, but I believe that the story of this little girl whose mother is locked up has to be seen. We have to talk about poverty in America. And I'll sell my soul for that, So when I look at it in that way, the self-doubt and the disbelief kind of gets really insignificant in the larger scope. And I have an amazing boyfriend that when I feel really low and really bad, I say, please tell me that I'm good. Please tell me I'm okay. And he does so.
Oh, how we need our cheerleaders. Entre Nos was the first for me on many, many levels. As I said, it was the first feature script I ever wrote. It was the first time I collaborated with anyone. I've written a lot by myself, and I got very comfortable with what Paola described as the loneliness. That felt great and secure because you can make your mistakes. But when you're writing with somebody, it was like, can I really do this? When she first asked me to write the story with her, I knew I couldn't pass up this opportunity, but I was really, really, really scared. And so my choices have become, are you going to give in to that fear, or you're just going to go for it? And every day on set, I felt that way. And I have to say that I I can't say that today I feel all so comfortable with everything. I just got hired to do a documentary, and I have like about 5 feature documentaries under my belt right now, and still I felt, can I really do this? And then I think back, well, this is how I felt the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time. So every time I change that fear into excitement. And I think that it's becoming more and more an exciting thing. However, I am very, very, very open to that challenge of tomorrow. When I started writing this story with Paola, I had just given birth to my son. And he's 4 years old now. He's basically as old as we've been putting this movie together. And now he knows what I do. He tells me, Mommy, I'm gonna make movies like you do one day. And I so don't wanna let this boy down right now, because it's so easy to be insecure, no matter how many films you have under your belt. It is so easy to feel insecure about writing. It is so easy to feel insecure about, can I really edit this? Am I ever gonna be able to direct another feature film again? But if you find those things in your life that are gonna make you get up and do it. Before it was a dream, now the dream got extended, and I have to say it got extended to, to our son, because my husband is my partner in doing this as well. So I think everybody has to find it within themselves to get, I was nervous walking in today. It's just, all these things, because we're human, and it's because we live and breathe that we can put that in our stories.
Thanks very much.
I think we had one more question.
Thank you both, and I'm sorry that I have to follow that really inspirational answer with another question. Thanks both for being here. This has been really wonderful. You've talked a lot about the writing process and the production process and pre-production, but I'd really love to hear about post, and in particular from Gloria, because you cut this film that you directed, and that's kind of a huge taboo. And I recently shot a film myself that I'm cutting now, and as hard as the writing process is, as hard as the fundraising and directing process is, my God, does it get hard cutting something that you've made? How long did you spend in post?
Post was how many?
We edited October, November, December, January. 5 months. We locked in 5. We locked pictures.
We didn't stop to breathe. I have to say that the success of the editing, the success of the editing was really the success of the writing and the success of the directing, and it was the collaboration. Even in the edit room, I mean, when we were writing this story, the written page was one story. When we were shooting, okay, that became another story, because the bathroom scene suddenly had to take place in the bedroom because we didn't have a door we didn't have a key to open that, so it had to change as well. When we got to the edit room, that also became another story. Paola was in the edit room with me. That being said, it was the first feature narrative that I edit. So it was a different technique than editing a documentary. When you edit a documentary, you're there to put the pieces together. You have some kind of map and a narrative. So I have to say that Paola, that extra pair of eyes, was very, very instrumental in that room. We also had our same creative battles. There were scenes that were very, very important to me. There were scenes that were very, very important to her. And we had to come to that decision. Does this stay in, or does this stay out? So I haven't had the experience of editing completely by myself as being the sole director and the sole editor of a project. I have done it in shorts, in shorts, not to take away from what a short is, but the arc and the story, you know, it is more complicated, it is more layered when it is a feature film. So we did a lot of no-nos in this story. So I wouldn't discourage anyone from doing it, but one thing that did help us a lot was when we were done in the editing room, again, the same thing that we did with our script, we selected a group of people and said, you know what, we invited 4 or 5 people, had pizza for them, had a screening of our rough cut, and sat in that room with them and listened. We listened to what they had to say to us. You know what, that opening, just, you know, I just don't get it. And a lot of times, and we're not there to defend the work. We're there to say, just to take notes, because if you're asking these people to give 2 hours out of their night, you really, really, really have to take advantage of what they have to say. So when we had our first cut, we did about 4 screenings. And you know, the shaping of it eventually, I mean, really, really made a difference for us. We knew when we cracked the nut, we're like, okay, you know. So just like writing and just being open to, you know, what the story is. So good luck, because you know, it's tough. It's tough to let go of certain things. So I don't know if I would have been the only one making those decisions. I don't know if I would have let go. There's certain things that I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? And Paula's too like, oh my God, what if we would have left that in? So, yeah.
I would just add that, or stress the importance of having those screenings to outside eyes. And because I've attended various screenings of those, and the filmmakers start defending their work, and then it's pointless. Like, really sit down, don't answer questions, just listen, take extensive notes, and listen to what's being said, even the really, really difficult things. I'll give you a perfect example. Our second to last screening, when we actually thought like we were in a really good place, we screened the film and we invited, and the way that we do it is we invite filmmakers and regular people, and we throw them in there, and so we kind of, you know, different race, different age, different gender, everything, so it's kind of a mix of everything. And there was this one filmmaker, very successful, who I respect tremendously. I was very excited for him to be there, and he was the first person that spoke. And basically, just to make it short, he said, well, have you ever thought about making this movie into a short? Because I think it'll be a really good short.
Ouch.
And he was the first guy to speak. And we were like, oh, okay. And instead of getting upset, huffing and puffing, it was, well, why do you think it would be a really good short? What isn't working as a feature? And then, you know, we started dissecting and talking about it. And yeah, it broke our hearts. And I went home that night and I stayed up until 4 in the morning trying to desperately figure it out. But he was right in the sense of the first 20 minutes of the movie weren't working. And what we had to do was basically lose it. So we took out 20 minutes of the opening of our movie. And it made the movie what it is today. He, as cruel as it was, as hard as it was, and as difficult as it was to realize and understand what he was saying, he was right. And I would invite him back again and be like, tell me what sucks. Tell me, you know, because that's what you need. You need people to tell you what isn't working. Hopefully not so cruelly, but...
I've gotten that comment like 2 or 3 times already, so...
Yeah, so that's
so maybe I should check out my first act.
Yeah, it's important to listen. And if someone invites you, it's your responsibility to be very, very honest. Your responsibility. And I know that's definitely, I'll never change that technique when I'm writing something or when I'm editing something. It's become part of how I work now.
And just to start to wrap up, if you could tell us a little bit more about some of your regular person responses to the films, whether it's festivals, screenings, community events. How are people responding to the story, to the film?
You know, we've been blessed in the sense that since basically the summertime up until December, Gloria and I were traveling nonstop. We traveled all around the world. We were in South Korea, London, Germany, Poland, Colombia, Cuba, Dominican Republic, like everywhere. And it was a real whirlwind, and it's been fantastic. And because the film deals with a lot of heavy issues, abandonment mostly, I think what's been so touching for me is people coming up to me and saying, you know, my father abandoned me, my mother abandoned me, thanking me, or just basically telling me their stories of abandonment. Because unfortunately, a lot of people deal with abandonment, not only immigrants, but all across the board. And it's something that those that have been abandoned will struggle with their whole life. And really, for me personally, is the foundation of who I am. I love who I am. And as I'm not thankful that I was abandoned, but I'm thankful for who I am. So those, and one particular that stands in my mind, we were in Cuba, and we were waiting outside the lobby, and the film got out, and there's this one girl who was bawling, literally bawling. She couldn't even talk. She just hugged me, I think hugged you, and then left. So it's those moments that have been very special for me.
And just so you do go see the movie when it comes out, a lot of the emotion that people have, I mean, we've looked at each other and honestly said, you know, we've really made a better film that we set out to make. Because I think all those elements, listening to people when they had to say something that we didn't want to hear, the collaboration process, it's a story of it's an uplifting story of the human heart, and I think that's when people really feel like, wow, that's when they can really release and either cry or want to come out and hug us. And the wonderful thing about and what was very, very clear what we wanted to do and why we want to open in Jackson Heights is because we want to be there as well. It's not common at all for a film to open and have the writers and directors there available for the audience. And the response has been so amazing when we've gone around and people have wanted to ask Paola, have you ever seen your father again? How does this work? You know, or questions. And we've really, at least for our opening in New York City, we want to really, really provide that experience. So it's a really uplifting story because basically the ending of the story is in front of you. It's a beautiful, successful American, or not really an American dream, it's a human dream story. So that's what's been so beautiful, and I think that's what's worked about the film worldwide, is that human response to it.
And so just remind us what the website is and when your opening dates are so folks can come and check out the film this spring.
The website is Entre Nos, ENTRENOS, film.com, and everything's there. And then we'll be opening May 7th in Jackson Heights. You can also follow us on Facebook, and you can follow us on Twitter. I have the Twitter account for the film, so Paola Mendoza at Twitter. Thank you, and thank you guys so much for coming out, and yeah, thank you to TAA and the New School and everyone. We really are happy to be here and hope we answered all of your questions.
Great. Thank you, Paola and Gloria.
Thank you.